Were you about to say really?
People do it.
Really?
You see?
Hi guys, welcome to Night Shifts. This is episode 8, and my name is Craig, also known as Ripple. On that side, can't see my pointers, but it's Chris, also known as TropicalPunch.
Hello.
Hi, racing driver for Amplify and co-host here on the show.
What up?
How's it going, sir?
Could be better. Pre-holiday stress, pre-holiday rush.
Hey, speaking of holiday, can you believe this is the last episode of 2024?
Yeah,
Episode 8.
Don't pull that dad joke where you upload it and then we just go, oh, see you next year, and that's just tomorrow. Oh, I haven't seen you since last year.
No, don't worry, guys. This episode goes up tomorrow. You'll have 2 weeks before next year. But yeah, it's the last episode of the year. Last episode before we go on holiday break. Christmas, New Year's. Any plans for Christmas or New Year's? Think about it.
I think we're just chilling.
Oh, no,
this year. It's the first year in the house. We've been traveling the last few years for the holidays, so I think now we're just gonna loaf around, relax.
So I was kind of expecting you guys to be at Christmas in your home, your new home.
I know. Don't have to go anywhere.
First Christmas and New Year's as a married couple.
I mean, well,
he doesn't get a big deal. I guess it's a good thing his wife doesn't watch the show.
We might as well have been married. We might as well have been married. Dude, I mean, we are 7 years? This past December 7th already.
Wow, 7 years already.
Yeah. So it's like we might as well have been married.
Yeah.
But yeah, so not too much. You got anything fun? Are you doing anything?
I'm probably gonna be at home because obviously I work at church, so I got a Christmas Eve two Christmas Eve services the day before, and then I'm gonna be wiped. I'm just gonna go to sleep, wake up Christmas morning. Probably my sister will show up at the house, and then New Year's. I don't think I have anything planned. I'm not doing anything. I usually don't, and even now, I don't think I stay up as often like I used to.
Yeah, I can't stay up that late. I give up around 10.
Yeah, or I'll wait till the ball drops, and after the ball's dropped, I'm like, all right, I'm going to sleep in 15 minutes. Good night, guys.
I feel like you're the kind of guy that runs outside banging pots and pans, hooting and hollering, causing a ruckus in the quiet neighborhood. I feel like that's you. You're just low key. You tell people you go to bed, you're just outside banging pots and pans.
That's me. If I could stay awake, I have to have something. I have to do something to keep me awake that late at night. If I'm not doing anything, or if I'm not at a party or something or socializing, then yeah, I'm gonna fall asleep.
I can't even do a party anymore. If I go to a party, if it goes anywhere past 10:30, I'm out at 10. We're like, yeah, this party's gonna go on past 10:30. Nah, we're out. We'll watch the ball. We'll wake up and we'll watch the replay of the ball drop on YouTube. We're good. We're good.
I mean, the one thing I got to look forward to is waking up to the Rose Parade. So
I got the Unk energy now. I'm 30. I'm 31. I got Unk energy.
At least for you, the Rose Parade is later in the day when it comes on.
Yeah. So
for us, it's early morning because it's here in Pasadena in California. So
New Year's Day. Yeah, I'm back to work the next day, so I couldn't even watch it anyway.
Oh, never mind. You're not even going to watch the Rose Bowl or any of the college football games, huh?
Nah.
Something new. So we're testing it on this episode, but basically next year we'll have a new, how do you say it, format system? Yeah, format to the show. And we're gonna try one of them right now. Top headlines going into end of this year. If you haven't seen it already, I don't know why you haven't seen this already, but Juan Soto got a new record-breaking contract. Finally breaks Shohei Ohtani's record for the largest contract, going to the New York Mets. Basically, I think someone asked him, hey, why don't you give up your time to charity? And he's like, oh, yeah, sure. I'm going to leave the Yankees and go to the New York Mets. But he got $765 million for 15 years with no deferred money. That's the big difference. And a $75 million signing bonus. That's a lot of money. And it's even in baseball, That's an insane amount of money.
I'm in
Red
the
Bull
wrong
parted ways.
industry.
Red Bull parted ways with Sergio Perez. We were supposed to get the announcement of the new driver today, but we haven't got that new driver announcement. Maybe we'll find out before the end of the week. Cadillac says they're eyeing Daniel Ricciardo as their first choice as driver for 2026, but Daniel has said this week at his grand opening for his new fashion store, no, he's not returning back to F1. So who's Cadillac going with? We're not sure. But that does lead to, hey, who would you expect Cadillac to go after as their driver? Are we going to look at an F2 driver to be their leading driver, or they're going to try and pull someone out of retirement at this point?
Perez.
So despite everything that happened at Red Bull.
Yeah. Cadillac's not Red Bull.
That's true.
Different team, different management, different system, different car.
My argument is I think Perez is still good. And we just saw the decline after the car had declined the last 2 years anyways. There's a reason why Max Verstappen is, if anything, like a lot of headlines have been saying Max Verstappen is to blame for Sergio Perez still staying at Red Bull, because Verstappen was the most outspoken and put Marco in the corner when it came to the second driver and saying that he wanted Perez. So I think there is still some substance to Perez. I just don't think we could see it in this car. I think this car is just is the performance we're seeing in this car is Max Verstappen, not the car itself.
Yeah. I think Perez will probably, now that Cadillac's looking for drivers, I think maybe we might see Perez throw his name in the ring. Or now that this announcement is official that Perez has parted ways with Red Bull, we may see Cadillac change direction from Danny Rick, who openly said, no, sorry, not interested on social media. And we may see them to be like, oh, former Red Bull driver Perez is no longer with Red Bull, open to making a deal, potentially.
And this will lead into the next one. With Perez out, who's in at Red Bull? Because look, let me put this way. Liam Lawson. All right.
When they announced that they were parting ways with Perez, I guess whoever broke the news had I think there was news, or like a part of the article talked about Liam Lawson filling the seat, and I feel like that is just mixing oil with water. Max and Liam's personalities will not mix.
So this leads to this other question, because obviously, like that's 2 in a row for Cadillac of Red Bull drivers. Basically, Daniel Rick said no. The other option would be, if it's not Bottas, Sergio Perez. And okay, of course, Sergio Perez is a Red Bull driver. The other one, I'm just going to throw this out here: Yuki Tsunoda. Do you see Yuki staying at VCarb if he gets declined with the Red Bull seat?
After this year, no. I think he'll finish the year, get paid, and then after this year, he's done. He's out. I
could see him going either to the Williams seat or to Cadillac, even maybe the Audi seat, because I don't think that second Audi seat is locked in yet.
No, but I don't think Yuki Tsunoda is going to stay at VCarb if he isn't picked for the Red Bull seat. Because right now, I think it's leaning Liam Lawson. That's the most likely filler. But in testing, in testing, Yuki's apparently been performing in the RB20. So if Yuki does get the seat, I think he'll hang around for as long as he can. But if they do go with Liam Lawson as the second seat, I think we could likely see Yuki exit F1 at the end of the season, because his whole thing is to get into Red Bull.
You think exit F1 completely? You don't think he would switch teams?
I feel like he's just that bent on getting into Red Bull. That's the thing. I feel like he's really bent. His dream is to get into the Red Bull seat.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he wants. I don't think we've ever seen him express interest in any other team but Red Bull, the main Red Bull team, not VCarb. I really feel like that's like he is tunnel visioned on that seat. If he gets it, we may see him around more. But if he doesn't get it and they just give it off to Liam after all the time Yuki has spent in Formula One, and he's already done testing in the Red Bull and has performed very well in testing in the Red Bull car, I feel like that I just have a feeling that's going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back for him, because at that point, they literally went with somebody who has had less time in Formula One than he has, who's put in less work than he has to get that seat. And now that the seat's open and he's participated in testing for Red Bull, and they just gave it to Liam, who I don't even think showed up to testing. It's
And
like,
this is Yuki's
what's the
first time
point?
in a Red Bull, right?
Yeah, I think.
I don't remember. Yeah, from all the way the headlines were done, is like, oh yeah, he finally got a shot. Like, this is his first time ever being in a Red Bull. And I don't think I ever remember him being in a Red Bull before.
No, I mean, but he did, and apparently he did very well, which is great for him. So I think if we don't give it to Yuki, I feel like at that point, it's like, why am I trying? They obviously just keep passing over me for what? So
do you think Liam Lawson's pride is going to let him stay at V-Carb as well if he doesn't get the Red Bull seat? Yes. Because he doesn't have any other options. Right. That's the problem. He's got nowhere else to go, and his only ticket into the Red Bull seat is through V-Carb. If that's the seat he wants, his only ticket is through V-Carb. Yeah. So I feel like even if they go with Yuki, because Yuki is, I guess you could say, in Formula One longer than Liam, so he has seniority that way and way more experience. Then I don't think Liam would be too bothered. I think he'll be disappointed, but the fact that he gets to stay in F1 as probably seat 1 for V-Carb would probably keep him there, just because he's seat 1. Because their seat 1 got promoted to a seat 2, and then he goes from seat 2 to seat 1, and then Red Bull just has to probably pull in a Formula 2 driver, maybe Franco, as a seat 2 for V-Carb. I don't know. But I feel like it's likely Yuki will leave Formula One if they don't pick him for the second seat for Red Bull, because he's been working for it for years, and he's expressed almost in every interview that's what he wants. Yep. Since day one, he's been expressing that. So if he doesn't get it, I predict he will exit Formula One after the 2025 season if they give it to Liam Lawson. But if it's reversed, if they do give it to Yuki and Liam Lawson stays in V-Carb, I think Liam Lawson will stay in V-Carb as driver 1. Yeah. I think I just think Liam will be disappointed, but I don't think he's going to be, I don't think he'll hold a grudge, because I feel like as cocky as Liam Lawson is, he has to understand Yuki has been in Formula One way longer and has way more track time and experience than he does. And I feel like as a driver, he has to understand that. So it's not personal. Yeah, I agree. So that's how I feel like it'll shake up. I could be completely wrong, but I just have a feeling that's how it's going to shake up if they overlook Yuki Tsunoda for the second seat. And I expect Cadillac to, if Tsunoda's not picked up, I expect Cadillac to try and jump on that. If they decide to not go the route of Sergio Perez. And then the second seat, I'm kind of expecting them to go Colton Herta. Like, Colton Herta is finally going to get his shot at Formula One and basically move from IndyCar over. But I mean, with his connections to Andretti, I'm kind of expecting that's where it's all pointing towards. But we'll see. Like, that's what I'm expecting for them to have as a second driver, because obviously, like, I doubt Cadillac's going to try and go with 2 superstars off the bat in their first year. But it may benefit them, especially if they know Sergio Perez's resume with what he did on Red Bull's team. I feel like he could be a very valuable asset to Cadillac. Besides the sponsorship dollars he's going to bring in, because he has that Kit Kat backing. Kit Kat Patronus, if I remember correctly. I think so. I think he's got Patronus. It's one of the tequila brands, the big ones. And dude, what's the Mexico cell phone company? Calmex? I don't remember. I don't remember. And I think Telnet? Is it Telnet? No. Maybe Telnet. Telnet? I thought it was Telnet. And then I think Tag, the watch company, I think came with him as well. which those are all huge losses for Red Bull in the first place. But
Oh yeah, financially, yes. So I mean, if Cadillac, I feel like they would. It would be a bad decision not to go, or at least offer Perez a contract now that he's been parted ways with Red Bull, because outside of his financial backing, he has that technical background with setups, testing.
Yep.
Just give him a decent platform, and I feel like he's going to help Cadillac a lot.
It's like a Nico Hulkenberg, basically.
Yeah,
it's all knowledge, basically.
I feel like they should bring him in not only for his financial backing, which should be, I guess, I mean, if you're a business and a team, sure, that's going to be your primary objective. We need the financial backing to support our Formula One, careers here and our spot on the grid. Okay, fine. But the knowledge Perez has after driving for Red Bull, it's like, damn. Like, what if Lewis Hamilton left Mercedes or parted ways with Mercedes but wasn't going to Ferrari? I guarantee you Cadillac would have jumped on Lewis Hamilton.
Oh yeah.
They would have jumped at Carlos Sainz if he had nowhere to go. They would have jumped at any one of the big name drivers if they were parted ways from their team. So I think if it's in Cadillac's best interest, now that the news is broke that Sergio's parted ways with Red Bull, that they should go after him, get him, offer him a contract. Because I don't think Sergio's done with Formula One.
I don't think so either.
So I feel like it would be stupid for Cadillac not to seize the opportunity. Even if he rejects them, at least try.
And I see the connection with the sponsors as well to Andretti, because I think some of them do kind of cross over to Andretti, or at least like have experience working with the Andrettis and the entire Andretti program, as well as with the Herta family. So I don't see it as a stretch, because I don't even see Cadillac reaching out to their prototype endurance drivers to fill the seat in Formula One. I don't think any of them have a license, the super license, to be able to compete at Formula One. So
I think they'd be qualified and they could probably get their super license, but I honestly just don't think they would want to. I don't think they have really an interest. I think they just want to stay in sports car because the schedule just works so much better for them.
Which is, I think, the sentiment of a lot of drivers right now. It's just sports car is easier. There's more breaks in between, and
it's good racing. It's not like I don't like when I say political. It's not like political. It's more like I guess you could say the drama between the FIA, the leadership of the FIA, and then the drivers, and then the principals. It's just like all the, I guess you could say, the inner entanglements of all the teams, and then like the FIA and all the corruption in the FIA. It's just, I feel like the sports car drivers just want to be like, hey, yo, sports car, hey, we're good. I don't want to touch it.
I think sports car finally got away from that drama because they had it before with FIA, ACO, and IMSA, all three fighting amongst each other. So, but at the same time with them, like we don't see it out in the front like we do in Formula One.
Yeah,
where the team principals where the team principals and even the drivers are involved in that drama. We don't really see that as often in sports car racing.
So I think it's just better to. I guess it's easier for them to keep their heads down in sports car and be like, yeah, it's not something we really have to worry about. So we're good. Leave that to Formula One drivers. We're out. We ain't dealing with it.
So when do you expect them, Red Bull, to announce their second driver lineup? Before Christmas?
After. I feel like they have to draft up a contract or a proposal.
You would think they would have if they said, hey, Perez is out.
Well, that news broke today. So, I mean, to be fair, they're going to have to...
It was supposed to break yesterday, apparently. We were supposed to know by the afternoon.
So, I feel like they're going to have to redraft their proposal if they had one for another driver, for Danny Rick, and maybe repropose it, redraft it, and then send it over to Perez. But I also think because of the holidays, he's probably going to spend time with his family and just kind of chill.
Oh, I meant for Red Bull. When are we expecting a second driver?
Oh, I'd say after the New Year or after Christmas, probably before the New Year. Before New Year's.
Same with
after
them.
Christmas.
We're waiting till after Christmas at this point.
Probably. The Christmas holiday is already. It's too close to really. If they break the news tomorrow or by the end of the week, that'd be really fast and kind of a shock for shock and awe value. But logically, I would wait till after Christmas to make that announcement. I would try to like finalize details the end of this week, go into the holiday, and then after the holiday, make the announcement.
Yeah.
That's how I would approach it. But for shock value and social media clicks, I mean, they could drop it at the end of this week or even on the weekend for all we know. So
Guess we'll see.
We'll have to see.
All right, guys, joining us for the first time, our first ever guest on the show as well is Matthew Reilly, also known as Maverick. He is founder for L8tency and Playchart. Playchart, who's also a big supporter here of Amplify as well. He's also the owner of Frost Esports, a tournament platform that has been hosting tournaments for Rocket League and Multiverse. I was about to say Marvel, but
maybe soon.
Maybe soon. And also founder and head of the Esports Roundtable community, which has been, for at least for me, it's been a really fun and engaging community to engage with other owners and staff members within esports. And it was like, it was everything. Valorant, Overwatch, Rocket League, you have people from everywhere, and even graphic designers and such. So really cool. Maverick, welcome to the show. First guest as well for us.
Yay!
Happy to be
First
here.
guest.
Have any plans for holidays, especially since this is our last episode before we go into winter break? So we're asking everyone.
Yeah. We're going down to my wife's family for a couple days next week. So
nice.
Middle of nowhere, New York. So
that's right, and you're still in New York as well yourself. We all know you're a Buffalo Bills fan over there.
Area. Yeah. Hell yeah, go Bills!
Buffalo Mafia.
Best team, only team.
We got both of us Eagles fans over here, and we're like, oh shoot, we might have to face Buffalo.
just him. He's the Eagles fan. Listen, I'm a fan of 4 wheels and an engine that burns dinosaurs. I don't
remember that.
Unless the Eagles are winning, then he's an Eagles fan.
Listen, a true Philly fan is always pessimistic unless the Eagles win. And even when the Eagles win, we always complain because we didn't deserve it. We always find something wrong. See, that's the thing about you being on the West Coast. Is you don't understand the Philly fan maneuver is like, yeah, we're doing great now. We suck.
Yeah,
we can't say we're doing good or we lose. We have to suck.
I can't understand the city of brotherhood's mentality there, I guess.
Yeah, we suck all the time. Even when we do good, we have to find a reason why we suck.
Fair.
At least Bills Mafia, they know how to have a good time.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
They jump off of buses and break tables, whether they're winning or losing.
Yeah, sometimes those tables are on fire, sometimes they're not.
Or they're 9 feet in the snow.
Well, yeah, a little bit.
We burn cities down when we win something, but outside of that,
yeah, I'm afraid of the day. A part of me hopes Buffalo doesn't win the Super Bowl, because the city will not make it through that.
I kind of want them to win the Super Bowl. I want to see what Buffalo does.
It won't survive.
It won't survive.
So on a scale of Philadelphia destruction,
probably worse. I feel like it's going to be way worse.
There will be fires. I guarantee there will be fires. Many.
There's going to be a sign where Buffalo is, and it says Buffalo was here. Was.
So Maverick, what for people who don't know, outside of esports, you're an architect. You do architecture. What brought you into esports?
So yeah, I started my architecture career about 6 years ago, but I took some business ed classes while I was taking my architecture degree, and that kind of got me interested in kind of running something of my own. At the time when I was taking those classes, I was like, oh, I'm going to start an architecture firm and this and that. And then I started working in architecture and I was like, I don't want to start a firm. I don't want to own this company. So that quickly made me start looking for other stuff. And one of the first things I did was kind of explore podcasting, ironically enough. So I was doing some like freelance advertising and marketing for a bunch of shows. So that's what steered me out of architecture.
And it's funny because it's kind of like me. I went to college to do video editing, video production, and whatever. And when I got my first job as a camera operator and technical director, I was like, I hate this. And I kind of just left it. I find it funny that when that first happened, I always felt like I was the only person in the world that never really followed, like stuck with something they went to college for. But it's always kind of cool to hear when someone was like, I went to college for this, but then I ended up saying, you know what, I don't ever want to do this. I want to do something else. I always find that to be really cool.
Yeah, and I will say I'm still working as an architect. Like I'm still in architecture. But the thing, like, they're very good about giving me the opportunity to do things that I want to do there. But
Nah.
that's only within the realm of architecture, you know. So if I want to learn things about running a business, I got to do it myself, right? And that was kind of where I was at with that. I wanted a little bit more of a challenge than what I was doing. I don't know how I ended up with this much of a challenge, but yeah, a little bit more at the time was what I was aiming for.
Damn. I mean, but with everything that you're a part of, I feel like this is a pretty this challenge is coming pretty natural to you because it seems like you have a lot of hats and you're able to kind of manage the hats all the hats that you're wearing. So I feel like if this is a challenge, then I don't even want to know what you consider easy because this is like almost impossible being a part of this many things and being able to balance everything. That's intense.
Yeah. Well, what's nice is, you know, I'll say, I know I said a lot of hats earlier. Sometimes I feel like it's one hat with a bunch of different stickers on it, right? Like this sticker, it's one mentor hat. That's kind of what I'm always wearing at any given time, right? But this sticker is okay, esports events, and this sticker is okay, esports orgs, and you know this one back here is marketing. This one's so like so.
All right.
It's one hat, but it's like it's kind of focused around these different projects. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to put
it's
it.
something to do with something esports related.
And speaking of hats, maybe you can help for the audience that don't know, breakdown of each of the hats that you actually do kind of, or well, stickers in this sense, that you wear in this big hat.
Yeah. So I think the big one that is the biggest but the quietest is latency. That was my first company. That's the first project I ever started. That's you know, of my own, I should say. So that originally started as a tournament organization. Even though that was not its initial purpose, its initial purpose was to provide services to esports orgs and content creators and brands in the esports and gaming space. But our biggest thing was finding a market, right? And we knew that it would be easier to break into the space and provide services and help to people if our brand was already kind of in people's mouths and people knew it, right? And at the time, tournaments seemed like the easiest path for us. Overwatch was one of the first ones we did. I still remember that event.
I wish we entered your events back then.
They were fun, man. We made a lot of mistakes and we lost our butts, but they were fun. They were a lot of fun. Yeah, and then that evolved into some other things. We got to a point with latency where we were spending a lot of money, and we kind of made the decision that whatever new things we were going to do, we were gonna find someone who was doing it well, and at the time we were going to just buy it from them. That's the mentality we had, was we just want this, right? So we'll buy it, we'll buy you, whatever you're doing, we want it. Sometimes I still have that mentality of I want that thing. But that's how we ended up with Frost. Was the owner, he was getting ready to go to college, and we had kind of collaborated with them on some events in the past, and he just didn't have time anymore. And I'm not one to run people's projects while they go do things and not be there. So I told him, look, I'll just buy it off you, and I gave him more than a fair amount looking back on it. But yeah, that's how we got Frost, and built out randomly between that time period all the other little projects. So,
and what was I guess, like, other than like moving latency from the tournament and going towards Frost, what was the big drive to just taking another brand versus rebuilding latency in a sense towards, I guess, what that goal with tournaments?
Yeah, well, there were kind of two pieces with Frost that I think were important. our cost per event was exceptionally high with latency. We were, and that was my thing when I came in, was like, you know, if people are doing work, we're gonna pay them market rate.
Yeah.
And that's all well and good, like that's great. But what we learned very quick was my market rate of fair pay and tier 3's market rate of what most people are paid, what the average person is paid, were very, very different. So I was paying people that were usually making like $25 a night. I was paying them like $150 a night. So
Damn.
that spend, it adds up very quickly, right? So when we found Frost, well, when we started actually seriously talking to him about buying it, that was one of the first things we talked about, was like, you know, you guys do weekly events very well, like we were doing, for titles we've never done before.
Yeah.
What's your cost per event? And their cost per event was exceptionally low. I mean, one of the first things we did was give everybody a raise because of how low it was.
Yeah.
But it was at a level that if there was no money coming in from it, we could afford to do it for a couple of years, you know? So, yeah, that's what we were looking for with that maneuver.
Excuse me. I guess, like, with speaking of cost, I mean, Chris, you know this. Like, I've talked about this since the beginning. Like, I would love to be able to pay people, since what Maverick said, market rate. That was my heart, and it still is my heart. Like, I'd love to be able to pay you guys what I think you guys deserve, and not what basically esports pays out. But we know that hasn't been reality for the past 8 years, since we've been doing, almost 9 years we've been doing this. And I'm sure, Maverick, like, we've had these conversations about, like, the state of esports as a whole, the industry. Do you feel like it's gonna get to that state? I'm gonna put it in like 25 years, because I feel like 10-15 years feels kind of short as well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a couple months ago, we started talking about like specific terms in esports, right? And so I'll talk about grassroots a little bit. I don't ever think organizations that exist online in the grassroots space will ever get to that point. The reason for that is anybody at any time could start an esports organization. I can start a new org tomorrow, right? And there are a lot of kids that just want an experience and are willing to sell themselves short, literally and figuratively, to be part of the experience, right? And for a lot of people, that's fine. Like, that's what they want. They want that experience. They want that moment. So I think from the grassroots perspective, how open the online space is, none of that's really going to change. I think at least over the next 10 to 15, especially 20 to 25 years, we're going to see some more either structured regulation of kind of the tiers and the levels of this space, or kind of, I'll call it cultural regulation, right? There's that implied, like, this is how it's done. No one's forcing us to do this, but this is how things are done, kind of thing that happens over time. So I think that will solve some of the problem. I think teams and organizations that are continuously competing in publisher or dev-backed events, those will be the ones that we see kind of nearing the approach of that kind of fair pay, and we are starting to see that. There's just, their footing is super loose. So when things goes wrong, and 20 people get screwed out of money, so sometimes hundreds. So we're getting there. I think there's a little bit more of a downhill before it starts going uphill, but I think we'll get there.
So then then my question is to, I guess, the state of esports. Like your question, I guess my question would be, I've been in the Overwatch scene when it was like what I felt to be in the time as a player where it was thriving. Like, it was like Overwatch League was popping off, all the Contender series and the Path to Pro was popping off. It was just like this crazy growth. And then after I left Overwatch, I felt and I've watched it kind of like I took a break from esports just to kind of get my life together because I feel like I put esports as a priority versus kind of developing my life. So for a while, I kind of backed out of Amplify for a bit just to kind of get my affairs in order. So I noticed a decline when I was in that hiatus, that off period of esports and competing and doing all that. I noticed that there was a massive enthusiasm decline. And and then like, now that I rejoined Amplify and when I talked to Craig when I came back and I was getting kind of into racing, and then he mentioned iRacing, and I kind of got on the platform, and after being on it for about a year and a half, I've kind of like taken to it, like almost like a duck to water. I love it. It's like the only thing I do now. And then I got interested in like, well, what's the esport aspect of this? And I brought it up to him. I was like, well, what if we competed in sim racing esports too? What if Amplify had a sim team as well as an Overwatch team? So then my question would be, do you see potentially a growth in like sim racing esports? Because being in sim racing community, I've noticed that there seems to be a growing interest in, I guess you could say, racing esports in general. Because I feel as if, say, from a guy who personally likes racing, they do esports, they play Overwatch or whatever, but then they like racing, but then they see sim racing as an esport and they go, well, hey, I got a gaming computer, I can get a steering wheel and set up, and I can jump right in and participate in racing. Do you see that as a potential, I guess you could say, stable or maybe a area of growth in the esport community?
Yeah, I think there's certain titles that are easy for someone who's never been a part of esports to understand. Rocket League is one of those that I can kind of relate this to, I think, very easily, right? Cars go vroom. The nice thing that Rocket League has is it's just soccer with cars. Like, that is so easy to explain to people, right?
Yeah. 3v3.
Right. So the nice thing about iRacing is, do you like NASCAR? It's racing, right? It's just right. Someone's at their computer instead of in the car, right? But those titles where it's super simple to explain to someone who's never been involved in anything esports or has watched anything, those have the biggest opportunity for growth and rapid growth at that. The thing that can hurt or expedite that is the developer or the publisher. So 2022, early 2022, Rocket League was on, there was a Rocket League event on like ESPN 3 or 2 or whatever. Like, that's crazy. That's nuts. On mainstream television, there was an esports event. Never happened since then. And the reality is even that was just 2 years ago, right? Well, about 3 now.
Yeah, but that's still
even back then, esports titles were still kind of doing well. That excitement amongst kind of laymen and new people coming into the esports industry was still there. And I think it is still there to a degree, but it varies by title, right? So I think right now certain titles are getting a lot of interest. We won't talk about Marvel Rivals because that's so fresh that I'm still trying to pick.
I wanted to ask you your thoughts on it, because as an Overwatch player, I've been watching a lot of stuff on it, but I wanted to ask you that question later. That was a question I had.
Oh, we'll chat about it for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think iRacing definitely has, or any type of sim racing really has, a good platform to stand on to be successful. And it sounds like, NASCAR is trying to provide that as well and kind of help with some of that. So that's a really good sign for its growth. It's just them sustaining that involvement and helping things at a grassroots level too, right? Not just focusing on the people that are really good at the game, but focusing on bringing new people in to the gaming community and welcoming them and teaching them. So,
and that's something about the iRacing community I've noticed, is that a lot of the experienced drivers in the community, like anyone that comes in, they go, hey, new to this, and it seems like they're always willing to lend a hand to be like, hey, from my experience, do this, do this.
Mhm.
But I'm noticing that there's also a lot of side leagues that take place that allow like a driver, like, hey, as long as you have this rank, you can compete, but we also live stream it. So we give you that, I guess you could say, top level experience of like, we're live streaming, we're commentating, and you're participating in one of our hosted leagues with a bunch of racers who do compete at high levels. And this is just like a bowling league. It's just for fun. You pay to enter. There's a prize pool. Yay, congrats. But also, I think another thing is that with backing, I notice a lot of grassroots. Like, I guess it's really hard for them to get that backing, that financial backing, to really get a footing in the esports, leagues, and to keep their organizations going and competing. But I think what separates, I think, sim racing from, like, we'll say Overwatch or a lot of those other leagues is that sim racing, we'll say, like, going down from EA to iRacing, EA Formula to iRacing, all of those are backed by, like, real world manufacturers. And a lot of some of the pro teams are even real racing teams that just said, hey, let's tap into the esports market. Like Ferrari has one, Mercedes, Williams, Red Bull. So I was wondering what your take was on, like, the potential growth of racing in the virtual world, because they do mention it in the real world. Like for the real life IMSA, the commentators will say, have you ever heard of iRacing? And then they talk about like how the drivers use iRacing to test, or they practice before an event. So they do name drop iRacing every now and again. So that's why I was wondering, what was your take as someone who, like, runs organizations or is a part of, or is also as a part of many organizations that dabble in a bunch of different esports? What your thought was of maybe sim racing entering that realm and maybe growing in that realm? Do you think it would be good in the same space as all those other titles like Overwatch, CSGO, League of Legends?
Will it be as good? I don't know if I can answer that, right? Because
I don't think it'll be ever be as good as League of Legends or CSGO too. I feel like when someone says esports, I think it's
super
CSGO too.
unique, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's why I like to compare it to Rocket League, because there is nothing like it. There's no game like, okay, now Overwatch's competitors, Marvel Rivals, like,
we'll get on that.
Even fighting games, like, there's a ton of different types of fighting games, right?
Oh, yeah.
That community is a little different. They're very much not competing with each other, between the inter communities, but a lot of them play a lot of titles, which is awesome. But they have something that I think kind of relates a little bit with kind of sim racing stuff, is that kind of like local community competition piece. What fighting games have is incredible from a local and regional level, is nuts.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm starting to see inklings of that with sim racing stuff. So I don't know if I've ever told you this, Amplify, what the hell? Ripple.
You are Amplify.
I guess I am now.
Yeah, whatever. My co-founder, he runs a local sim racing league in South Carolina. For a bar. The bar owner bought like 6 or 7 rigs, and he puts them in the building next to his, and they do like we'll chat with him at some point. But he does, he's down there sending me pictures like every other week. He's putting them on TikTok and stuff, and they just have a blast. So seeing people really connect with that type of esport at a local level and putting money into it to support that kind of growth from a local level for kids too that can't afford some of the rigs, right? But they get to experience that very expensive rig environment. That's awesome to see, and that's just going to fuel the growth. So
that's awesome, though. I want to go down there now, just to go to the bar, just to do it.
With that, because I know we've been talking about iRacing a lot, and iRacing has had this massive. We talked about this before too. Like, it has this connection to real world where, like, we've seen some of the professional drivers like Anthony Alfredo, William Byron, who's in NASCAR Cup Series and on the verge of winning a championship within the next few years, has came from iRacing. And like that transition from virtual to real world has been an important element towards the whole thing. Now, when we look at other esports, like it's not feasible because like how can you go from Overwatch to real world? But is there a barrier? Like for instance, like the only way I could think of is live events. With the limited amount of live events that have been happening, do you think that is more of a detriment to esports, and that's what that missing, I guess, real world element that we're
exposure
we're looking for? Yeah.
Well, it's possible. I think your genre needs to find what its live events look like, right? Because there are two kinds of live events. There's the typical LAN, like when you think of RLCS or VCT or whatever League of Legends thing is. Can you tell I watch? And then there's what most titles at the FGC do, which is it's essentially a convention with rigs set up with different games preloaded on it. So my opinion is, I mean, even the big events are like that. Evo's just, it's a convention really at the end of the day.
Yeah.
My opinion is those convention style esports events fuel the growth of those communities way better than massive LAN championships with 6 teams that no one actually cares about. They care about the players. So, I think, competitively, sim racing's still new and it's still from a regional standpoint finding its feet. But if it can be pushed towards that more community feel, I think that's the sweet spot for LAN events, and that's a lot easier. Well, it's got its own hurdles on setting up, but kids bring their own controllers and rent controllers and bring switches and whatever for FGC stuff. So I know those aren't as expensive, but things can be figured out. That's what TOs and production companies do. So
I guess like flipping over to other esports titles as well. Because we have seen, like I said, we've seen a decline in LAN events. You mentioned convention styles more. I guess the other aspect is regional. Like I'll use Pokemon, for example. And Pokemon has still been going on really strong. And if anything, it's been growing in the last few years recently because of the expansion into regional tournaments that qualify you into, national conferences and then into the international championship stuff. Is that something with esports going more global? Like let's say Overwatch. Like Overwatch now just announced they're having a third LAN, and everything's through DreamHack. Again, another like gaming conventions situation there. But with esports going towards the more international route, do you feel like more of a regional qualifier stuff, especially even for grassroots? And I know we've talked about Halo before as an example, and we could touch on that after this, but do you think more of a regional style is going to be more beneficial towards esports as a whole across different titles, like not just Overwatch, but like Valorant, Counter-Strike, what's the other ones? League of Legends?
Yeah, I hate to keep talking about FGC, but it's the easiest one to relate because it kind of fits this, in my opinion, what is kind of the perfect structure. Their regional support and just the way they kind of, even inter-regional competition is phenomenal. And it's just fueling anything that could be bigger. Obviously, like you can say like Smash, right? Smash is probably one of the longest lasting ones that fit into that category. Their regional stuff is fantastic, but it's entirely community driven. Nintendo's never going to put a penny into that again. But the community is already kind of established what they want to do, and Nintendo, for the most part, leaves them alone unless something crazy happens. So, all that game would need is Nintendo's support, like formally and with someone that actually knows what they're doing this time, and it would crush 99% of other titles.
That's something I've seen in college. They have their own Smash leagues, and they were so well organized
Well, that's the thing too, and you can kind of look at collegiate esports leagues. They do regional stuff as well. They do East Coast, West Coast stuff. They do. There's like a Northeast and was it SEC, Southeast Esports
Yep.
Conference or whatever.
Mhm.
So, yeah, they do a lot of interregional stuff, and that's really good for those colleges because they're attracting kids from the regions that would come to their school anyways, right? So that's really good for recruitment for them. But it's the same with kind of grassroots stuff. It's I think we've definitely talked about this, Ripple, but like that it's the reason I love the Bills, right? I
Yep.
live here. If I lived in Tallahassee, I wouldn't like the Bills probably. Maybe I'd like the Bills. They're pretty good. But you know, it's that tribe mentality. So
Yeah.
if I know that my region's better than yours, even if we're all just a bunch of random kids and we're not like in an org together or in a school together, if I know my region's better than your region, I'm talking smack. And I'm gonna recruit as many people to my region as I possibly can, you know. So um creating that sense of like this is my thing and these people are my people mentality within esports is really good. It fuels a lot of narratives and drives people to compete not only with a controller or keyboard but kind of professionally as well. So
Besides being able to see your opponent in person or see other friends and acquaintances.
oh yeah, 100%.
So I'm not hinting at anything, but would Frost benefit with doing regional support stuff in person?
Yeah, we haven't talked about it officially. It's I have a book. I have a few books. I have like books of things, right?
Holy.
And
Notes.
they all have to do with something. One of them's my actual job, but the other two are just projects and ideas. And yeah, I've toyed with the concept of like, okay, Frost does weekly events really well. Why would we not launch a Frost EU and like someone in the EU owns it? It's just franchised out essentially and just doing hyper local franchised versions of what we do that
Yep.
supports the local scene, right? And then that opens you up to crazy stuff like it's, you know, inter event, not, you know, between the franchises, you know, NFL level stuff.
Yeah.
But I think people get really caught up like in the big picture of esports, trying to relate it to traditional sports. Like VCT just put a post out today about their changes for next week, and they're talking about relegation and this and that, and like they're terms that are very easy to understand because a lot of people do watch traditional sports.
Mhm.
But it doesn't necessarily relate to what we're doing because everything we do in esports is really, really online. Like there
Yeah.
is no hyper regionality to it. So until that kind of regional piece comes in, I think we're gonna that kind of destabilization that we keep kind of talking about, I think will persist. But it's definitely something I've thought about. It's in my book. Will it happen? I don't know. Who knows? You know, but definitely talked about it. I've talked to people locally about esports stuff as well. It really depends on your, you know, your city and the area around and how much esports support there is locally. So
I mean, because you have all these books of notes, basically, like obviously you're writing down a lot and you're thinking about esports a lot. How do you balance that with your regular life and work? I mean, you're married yourself and such.
See,
And so
I am. Yeah,
I know esports consumes a lot.
it does. During COVID, so if COVID didn't happen, I wouldn't be in esports right now. I had an Xbox before COVID. I was playing games. I was doing stuff on a laptop that, you know, sounded like a jet engine when I turned it on. Like, you know, I was very much not a gamer. And a lot of my time was consumed by work. I had just started dating my wife when I started working in architecture. So it was very, you know, I was in a new region of the state, so I was exploring a lot, doing a lot of outdoorsy stuff. I didn't have time to sit at my computer all the time. When COVID hit, that was like, okay, well, now what am I doing, right? And we're both home, not doing anything, can't go anywhere. so that's kind of when I really picked up on a lot of these side projects and whatnot. I think I've definitely had times, and my wife and I have talked about this, where I have just melted into my projects. It never eats into my work stuff. I always get my actual job that pays the bills. That always gets done. But any kind of free time, esports is definitely eating into that. And I've burned out a couple times because of that. But I think my big thing that has definitely helped me is just scheduling my days. Like, and the one thing that I'm now working on, thanks to my awesome therapist, who I sometimes talk about Halo with, is like setting those boundaries. Like, I'm notorious, and I know you've heard me say this, of like, yeah, just shoot me a message, I'll answer it. I'm almost always on my, I'm really bad at that. I still am bad at it. But setting schedules of like days that you are actually going to actively sit at your computer and work on stuff, and days that you're just going to play a video game for a couple hours and melt your brain. And then sticking to those and setting that wall, like, okay, I'm stepping away from this computer. I'm leaving my phone there. I'm not answering it, right? Like, there's no emergency that is happening right now that should interrupt my time with my family, really. Like,
right.
Frost does not have a building that could go on fire. It doesn't have, no one has access to bank accounts and they're just ripping money out. Like, there's no real fire that can happen that should eat into my time that I set for my family. So,
except for your computer with an overclock fan.
Right. That could light on fire. Yeah. So yeah, scheduling and just hard barriers and boundaries with your time, I think, is the big one.
That's something I have to learn how to do, because it's always, for me, when I go to work, it's work.
Yeah.
Pays the bills, it allows me to fund my addiction to sim racing. So I gotta be able to keep my job. So, but when I come home, I always feel like if I come home, I'll eat, and then if we're not doing the podcast, I'm sim racing. And even when we do have a podcast night, sometimes I jump on the sim and I do some races. And by the time I get off, it's like 11 o'clock. And I was like, it's a Wednesday, isn't it? And he goes, yeah, I've been waiting for you. And I was like, oh. So I definitely think I need to start scheduling myself and actually kind of follow that schedule where these are the days I race. This is a podcast. And I also need to incorporate going back to the gym more often.
Yeah. That's because for me too.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely feel like maybe I need to start running a schedule, because I feel like I have an okay balance, but it could be better.
Yeah, it's really finding a sweet spot. So before I burnt myself out again in, I think it was August. The reason I burnt myself out was because I was over scheduling. I had every hour of every day figured out and sequenced out, and I knew, like, I would go to bed and I would know exactly what I was going to work on and when the next day. It was bad.
Oh man.
Damn.
And I held myself to it, because before I had the same problem. I'd wake up and I would never check my calendar, and I'd miss a meeting and I'd be like, shit, I got distracted working on this task that I shouldn't have been working on at this time because it wasn't crucial, right? So I overscheduled. I even built a little like Google Script tool to schedule my time for me based on priority. It was nuts. So finding that balance of, okay, these are the things that I need to get done this week. This is something that's a little more high priority, so I'll work on it now. But scheduling that time for what is important, like family or going to the gym, hard scheduling those things, I think, is good, and being consistent with it. If you're going to say, I got to go to the gym every day or every other day or, once
That's
a week,
you
got to say, every Tuesday, and set like 6 alarms. That's usually what I do when I'm trying to pick up a new habit,
I used to be really good at going, where I would get up at there was a point, I don't know when it stopped, but there was a 2-3 year period. I think this was during my hiatus from esports, Ripple or Craig, where every morning at 4:30 a.m. I was up. I was at the gym at 5, and I'd be back home by 7 a.m. every day for 3 years.
I think he used to do it before the hiatus.
This was after hiatus. I felt like I was really overweight, and during that 3 years, I was thin. Like I looked entirely different than I do now. Like my traps were huge. Like I was skinny. Like I was like lean. Like I was good. And then I worked IT and put on that corporate America belly, which I'm keeping at bay, but I want to shape it up a bit more. But yeah, no, because I'm finding some level of physicality with sim racing, as goofy as that is to say, and as nerdy as that is to say, like, oh, I sit and drive a virtual car. Look at me in my fake car. But there is a level of physicality where we do endurance races that span sometimes 24 hours, and it's 24 real hours. And we have one coming up, the Daytona 24, where I actually put in for off, and my supervisor knows what I do because he's also a degenerate gamer for World of Warcraft. So he understands. He's a degenerate gamer.
He gets it.
He gets it. So I'm just like, hey, yo, I need off the 17th. He's like, for what? And I was like, I got a 24-hour Daytona race. He's like, all right.
So he's putting in his off for the next patch or expansion drop.
He did. He had his dad who plays build his character and basically run his character before he got home because he was working.
Oh man!
Like he had like a whole system planned where he had a whole character, and then he said, "Oh, my character died, so I made a whole new one." I was like, "Oh my god!"
Oh man!
But so it's like I have a decent paying job. It's a good job, but I have a supervisor who understands that I do sim racing outside of work, and he knows I do these events, so he's very flexible with me, being like, if you need off for an event, just let me know. And anytime I tell him, like, if I do well, and he's like, well, when are you quitting? And I was like, well, he's like, when are you quitting? I was like, I'm not going to quit. I was like, trust me, there'd have to be a whole set of circumstances that would have to guarantee me pay that pays double what I make where I'm making IT for me to be like, all right, cool. See ya, out.
He's looking for that 6-figure paycheck.
Right. If they offer me 6, I'll leave my job and I'll do this full time. I'll stream, do whatever you want me to do full time. This will be my life. I'll do it. Sure.
Drink Coca-Cola.
I will drink Coca-Cola. I will drink it if that is what it takes. I will drink it.
It's a Pepsi household, huh?
Yeah, we moved to Pepsi.
Fair enough.
I can't lie. I'm a Pepsi drinker too.
We moved to Pepsi, but hey, listen, if I ever got sponsored by Coca-Cola, I would be drinking a Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola, if you're listening.
Coca-Cola, if you're listening, hey. I'll drink. Hey, listen, I can come back. I can come back.
You got to make this guy switch, so
I can come back. I can change teams again. Hey.
I can change teams again.
Hey, listen.
Man.
Brand loyalty in esports, is that going to be a thing as well, or?
I don't know. I don't know if did you see that tweet from it was an interview from the CEO of Razer?
I have not seen.
It was part of what I was yapping about the last 2 days on Twitter.
I think I saw, but I don't remember reading it. I don't think I clicked on it because I've just been busy.
So he did an interview and he was asked a question about esports.
Yeah.
And he was essentially saying, like, why would I get involved in esports? Like, he was specifically talking about people reaching out to him and asking him about deals and stuff. And he's like, if whatever you are doing cannot provide more value to me than Google AdSense, I'm not doing it. And there's not many things that can do that. And that's kind of the reality. True. And if Razer is saying that, the company that sells gaming peripherals is saying that about esports.
Well, why? Well, do you think he's saying that because maybe there still just isn't like, I don't want to say a traditional sports structure, even though I've heard Craig talk about certain esports are heading that direction where they're taking on a traditional structure or mirroring it or trying to like have some kind of adaptation of it.
Yeah.
But that kind of statement from Razer, I mean, I'm not a Razer fan. Sorry, Razer. I know you'll never sponsor me. I'm a kind of a Corsair guy, Corsair and Logitech. But you would think with esports, the players are using these peripherals, whether it be Razer, Corsair, Logitech, HyperX, SteelSeries. You're talking about products that these players are using. And I understand why he said that. Esports, I don't think, as from hearing what you guys have been talking about, it doesn't sound like esports can compete with that realistically. That's a very tall order. Yeah. But it doesn't, to me, it kind of feels kind of weird that it's like Razer, with the kind of money it has and the leverage they have in like the tech world, knowing that they're a gaming peripheral, why wouldn't they, to a degree, I'm not saying they should go all in, but like to a degree, kind of help pull that esports up?
Not their job to help.
I know it's not their job, but you would think
something to kind of keep in mind, and this is something I have to explain to a lot of people that are trying to just run projects in esports, is in 2023, I can find the article, I talk about it all the time. In 2023, the market share for esports, the percent of the gaming environment, of the gaming market that is esports, was about 12%. The rest is casual gaming. So 88% of gamers don't even know what Sentinels is. They don't know what these esports organizations even are. So, why would a $1 million, probably close to $1 billion company spend money elevating a scene that doesn't encompass their market share? Or really, it's a fraction of their market share, So, and they tried it with many brands tried it, So if they see, if a non-endemic gaming brand, let's say a car company, sees that Razer can't make selling gaming peripherals to Rocket League players and the Rocket League community makes sense, why the hell would a car company get involved, right? And the reason I say car company is Kia was involved in Rocket League stuff for a while. And I don't know what they were thinking there. No 14-year-old Rocket League players buying a Kia or telling their dad we need a Kia. Like, that just doesn't make sense.
Or Porsche getting involved with Overwatch and doing that whole collaboration.
Or Mobile One, the gas company, getting involved in, they sponsor a Rocket League team. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
I guess it's more just like name recognition, or they're trying to pull in car fans to be like, Mercedes and Mario Kart 8. Mercedes has cars and wheels in Mario Kart 8.
Right. Mario Kart players, most of them are over the age of 25.
Well, right, but like a car company in a video game is Mercedes. They have wheels. Wheels.
That's in the game itself. That's totally different conversation.
But AMG Mercedes did partner with MSI, which is a gamer computer company. When they partnered, they made like a limited edition laptop that was themed AMG Racing Mercedes.
How many of those they sold?
I don't know. They were limited edition though, and also very expensive. I'm actually kind of curious too. But there's. I see that, but I understand the Kia thing. Kia and Rocket League,
Yeah, I'm not trying to be like doomer about it. I think there's still there's hope for a lot of these brands, but I think two things have to happen. Brands need to come to a kind of an understanding of what the size of this scene is right now, and keep an eye out for metrics and have metrics to hit to come back in to this space, which is probably what a lot of them have. But the other thing too is players, developers, organizations need to also come to an understanding that for a good amount of time, for maybe the next 5 to 10 years, there are not going to be a lot of good new brands, notable brands coming into the space. It's I think certain titles will have that, and we'll probably have a little more luck with it. But there's not going to be many new brands coming to VCT and Valorant and Rocket League right now. And a lot of that does have to do with kind of publisher decisions and what they allow. And, I'll use Rocket League as an example again. They aren't letting organizations put sponsored logos on the car decals anymore. So the organizations can't make money from the sponsors, and the sponsors can't even market their crap to the audience that they're trying to market to. So,
Wow.
and that's not the organization's fault, right?
No.
Like, there's nothing the org can do. They're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. So,
Yeah.
a lot of that growth and the allowance for brands to even get involved in the first place comes from the dev side. And it's that same conversation, right? Why would I, as the developer, spend every waking moment catering to the competitive community when I've got 80,000 casual gamers logging on every day,
Yeah.
Mm.
Which is funny because, like, to me, it feels like an about face to Razer from what I remember Razer years ago, spending so much money on esports and giving peripherals to players as much as they can.
I bet they lost their ass on that.
Because I
Probably
remember them being like one of the biggest World of Warcraft brands, and like World of Warcraft is synonymous with Razer. Like that's how I always saw Razer was. Oh, that's a World of Warcraft brand.
And that was the heat of esports growth. That was when investors were coming in out of nowhere, crypto sponsors were jumping in. Like it was getting silly.
So then it makes me wonder if it's the devs that are really holding what could be back. If it does fall to the devs going, well, I understand their point of my casual base is 80% and my competitive base will say is 20%. I'm going to cater to the 80 versus the 20.
Right now it's devs. I don't really think it used to be like that, to be honest. Like we were talking about with like I said, investors, right? Investors were coming in and spending money because they saw a lot of potential in what esports could be, but they were dealing with kids who had never run businesses before and were doing trick shot content on YouTube for 10 months, right? And it's not because they were good at whatever they were doing. They just did it first,
Yeah.
And they rode that and all that money that was given to them into continuing their existence. They got lucky a couple times with good rosters and whatnot, but none of them really had plans for continued sustainability and growth and monetization in any capacity, aside from me pick up roster, me win money, right? Like that's
right.
That was the root of what they thought would work. So
pay to win.
Yeah,
basically.
Pretty much.
Which is, and it's funny because like it, in a sense, it does make sense. We've talked about regional and such as well. Like I think about traditional sports in traditional side of it, it's the 1% that are at the pro level, maybe less than the 1% that make the pro level. And then your rest of your base is, the casual, quote unquote, regional and sort of develop kind of thing. And I know this is something we've talked about with grassroots. Like, how do we make grassroots, more, I guess, stable in a sense to where like it makes sense there. Like it's a development towards connecting semi-pro and pro level. Like I that's the way I kind of view it. But at the same time, it does make sense from Razer's standpoint. It's like, all right, we've invested all this money into it in the past. It didn't work for us, but what is working for us is the word of mouth. Like, they make decent products and people will recommend it and such. And now it's like, okay, we let Google AdSense and people's word of mouth do the marketing for us, and we're selling as much, maybe more product, or probably the same amount of product, but they're spending less to market their product.
And you were talking about kind of regional with it too. I think from a regional aspect, you have a lot more impact on the market if you partner with brands. Like realistically, like I could, if I took Frost and I made it, Buffalo Frost, and it was always Buffalo Frost, whatever, it was always existed here, and how we do online was equal to how we're doing in person. The amount of impact I would have on my local market is nuts. Like the amount of brands that would be willing to work with me. I could go to a pizza shop and say, hey, you're going to sponsor this tournament for $1,000. I guarantee you'll sell 1,000 pizzas within, 2 days of you doing this. And it would happen, and they would do it because it's a lot. One, I'd probably order 500 of the pizzas just to guarantee it happens. But two, the real reason is there's just a lot more of that impact locally because those individuals who go to that event are going to go, oh, blah, blah, blah's pizza. I haven't had that in a while. Let's go there tomorrow, right? It's that subconscious thing. It's the same thing with like internet marketability, but like I've never, the Mobile One Racing Rocket League team, I don't go to Mobile One. I know I'm never going to go, oh yeah, they sponsored a Rocket League team. I'm going to go get their gas, So, it's knowing your market as a company, but it's knowing what companies would actually benefit from your involvement.
Mm-hmm.
Like you really, if you are reaching out to companies, you really have to kind of say to yourself, like, what do I have to tell this company for them to just take advantage of everything that I do? Like they want every piece of my capability, not just kind of what I think I could do, right? But like every ounce. That's what they want from you as a marketing campaign for them, essentially.
You could just couldn't you just be like, hey, what can you offer me? Free marketing. I'll do it for you. Done.
Technically, but you have to be able to tell them, like, or show them that you are capable of doing that. And that kind of ties into what we were saying, was like a lot of those early esports owners were saying they could do certain things based on market data, but it didn't relate to them themselves and what they were doing, right? It was all perceived market data because the industry was so new, and they were relating it to like, how social media was doing at the time because that was the closest thing, right?
We had no proven market data.
Right. So there were a lot of people saying, well, you don't got to worry about a thing. We'll market all your shit. And then they sucked at it, so.
Yeah.
Speaking of elevating grassroots and esports as well, you do have a new program coming up that, hey, we get to promote on the show for the first time. I think this is the first time it's being mentioned outside, right? Or no,
yes.
You tweeted about it, I believe.
I do this thing where I tweet vague things to garner interest and make people kind of question what the hell I'm doing at any given moment. But yeah, so we were talking in Frost about building communities for new game titles. And this worked really, really well for us for Multiverses, kind of accidental. And we technically didn't do that. Our event admin did it. It's his community. He just happened to work for us. And he's a phenomenal event admin. So people just kind of started associating him and that community with us.
This is Tengoku, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Shout out Tengoku.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. He came out of nowhere, which is great. Those are the best hires. So we noticed that worked really well for us. So we thought, let's kind of formalize that. Let's find new games, new titles that are coming out that have the ability to be competitive. And even if we're not hosting an event, let's build a competitive community. We know how to build communities. We have a good kind of template for that. And it's just empowering people within that space to be leaders there and to kind of own that with us. So that's something we will be working on for 2025. Right now we're starting with Marvel Rivals. Marvel Rivals Grassroots is the name of that one. But we'll be trying out some more over the next year. We've got some other fun little projects to tie with it. But yeah.
So this is the Powered by Frost program, and how, if they want to get involved or help with a starting community, how would they go about doing that?
So we haven't officially launched the links or kind of tweeted about it or anything, but if you want to get in on the ground floor, you can either go find the link on my Twitter, or if you want to know when that post goes out kind of formally, it will either be Friday or Monday. that's we'll be tweeting that from the Frost Esports account on Twitter. So at Frost Esports.
And then Marvel Rivals community, you guys are still looking for help there as well, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'm still at this kind of building phase, but we're going to put out a post. We're going to be looking for some community admins. We're going to do some kind of less formal tournaments and community events, some free kind of $30 winner takes all stuff. So,
Cool.
yeah, there's some roles on the community and event side for that are volunteer right now. But yeah, if you're looking for something to do and you enjoy the game as much as I do, jump in.
Or you're getting tired of Overwatch. One of the two. Any other plans for latency and Playchart as well?
Yeah, I've got
anything that you can say, I should say. Specify.
I've got some pretty big plans for that one. That's kind of cooking. I can't give a ton out on that one yet, but if it goes well, 2025 should probably be the best year for all my projects. Yeah.
Let's go.
That's awesome.
Nice.
I do want to say on behalf of Amplify, of all of our staff and players, a big thank you to you and Playchart for supporting us this past last season with basically, obviously, like you saw, like the players came in third in the season and such, which it was much improvement for them. And looking forward to next year with OWCS and such. But yeah, I definitely, for my sake, want to say thank you. You guys been amazing partners and sponsors for us. So, and you're our first as well. So on top of that, not only first on the podcast, the first sponsor for Amplify as well.
When I found out that Playchart, that Amplify was sponsored by Playchart, I was like, can we get their logo on our livery for the season so we can slap it on the livery and drive around with it?
He's already awesome. Hitting the DMs on the podcast.
Yeah, always happy to help. Yeah, I knew you guys were, looking to get that roster, and so anyway I could help with that. I was happy to do it.
Yeah, I appreciated it. I know the players did too. But yeah, I mean, hey, Mav, thank you for coming on the show. This has been good. I do want to give you space to where, do you have any, because you are very much a big voice in the esports scene, and not only like you're head of the roundtable with large network events and such. Do you have any, I guess, like advice that you would give to, I would say, like college kids, younger kids, or maybe like people getting into esports that are transitioning from or trying to balance real life work, like how you are trying to balance real life work and family and such, as well as just setting realities and goals with esports?
Yeah, I think the big one is just don't be afraid to fail. I thought since I was very young, you could ask my mom, since I was like 10, I've been saying I wanted to be an architect, and I still do. But don't be afraid. Like, no matter what age you are, you can still pivot. You can still kind of change whatever you're doing, try something new. Like, the projects I've run have failed multiple times, but that doesn't mean you did something wrong. It just means you're not there yet. You just got to tweak it, change it a little bit. So don't be afraid of failure. Just keep trying. And if you're not enjoying something, try something a little new.
Yeah, those are great advice.
Yeah.
Well, guys, this is our last episode for the year. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, Matt, for joining us again on the show.
Yep. Thank you for coming.
I do want to wish everyone Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year into 2025. We'll be back next year, of course. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to Amplify's channel. Hit that bell as well. Get notifications. Let you know when we're back on. You'll never miss an episode if you do that. And then you can follow us on social media. In description below, you'll find all of our links to Amplify and our individual channels. That way you can chat with all of us. I will also include Maverick, so please go follow Maverick. Maverick always posts great advice on his Twitter. And sometimes he's just shooting the moon, in a sense. But yeah, no, he's a great person to network and to connect with. We'll include his social media in the description as well. But yeah, thanks for coming out, guys, and we will see you guys in 2025. Have a great holiday, guys.
Yep.
See ya.
Happy holidays, guys. See ya.